Hello, listeners. Welcome to the very first episode of a brand new podcast. You're listening to Are You Ready to Ruck? Hello, thanks for joining us. My name is Kevin Borras. Welcome to episode 1 of Are You Ready to Ruck? A new podcast in which we'll be talking to some experts, like 12 experts, on the subject of road user charging. Specifically, we're talking to experts from the SPRUCE network. SPRUCE stands for Specialists Providing Road User Charging Expertise. There are 12 such experts from countries such as Austria, the UK, Germany, France, India, Netherlands, Sweden, and Switzerland. And we start, the only place we can start is with the founder of the SPRUCE network, and we're joined by Steve Morello. Hello, Steve, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
No, well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for starting the whole thing off. Just in terms of context, people like to know when they listen to podcasts, where are the people speaking from? So I am speaking from the southernmost tip of London. Steve is in the Dominican Republic, not where you'd expect him to be, but Steve, you are en route at some point to France. Sure, that's why I mentioned France. You are on your route to France.
Exactly. Yes, I'm stopping over in Dominican Republic for 2 months before settling into France in August.
Excellent. But just in case you're wondering where we are, people like to know. Okay, so we're talking about road user charging. Now, today, we have discovered, of course, that the congestion pricing scheme in New York has been cancelled. So maybe this will change everybody's answers to our questions. But let's talk about you first. So I'm asking the same questions to all 12 of you, really. But tell us about not necessarily your day job, but most people will know who you are in this sector. Can you talk about where you've been before and your sort of fascination and involvement in the whole complex industry of road user charging? Where did you start, and how far have you come?
Well, first of all, for more than 30 years, I have worked in the ITS and road pricing sectors. Since about the year 2000, when I was directly involved in the UK lorry road user charging competitive dialogue project, I have focused on the user pays principle for road usage. First of all, I began by working with Aegis Consulting for 17 years as I transitioned from the ITS market to the road pricing market. And then in 2005, I joined Aegis Projects for 6 years as an international business development manager, where I worked on a number of critical projects around the world, mostly in South Africa, in Slovakia, in Poland. I was involved in a few tenders in the United States, but eventually I came back to the United States in 2011 as a co-founder of Milestone, in order to help with the deployment of and rollout of potential studies and potential future implementation of light vehicle road usage charging projects. We were involved in a number of projects. I was directly involved in the Washington State, the Oregon, and Hawaii projects that have since gone forward, where Oregon and Hawaii have implemented distance-based charging systems for light vehicles that are, in the case of Hawaii, it'll be mandatory. In the case of Oregon and other states in the US, it's an opt-in program. And then in 2021, Milestone Solutions was acquired by CDM Smith, and I worked for them until I retired in December to begin my new company as a freelance called Route 66 Conseil and prepare my move back to Europe to help foster the development of light vehicle road usage charging in Europe and be part of the startup of the SPRUCE network of professionals. I don't know if I call myself the leader of it, but I was one of the instigators who lit a fire to come together, a bunch of independent experts coming together to try and foster the development of lorry road usage charging, or not lorry, but light vehicle road usage charging projects in Europe. As we transition to more sustainable means of our vehicles on the road, we have the take-up of electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and they are causing a dramatic downturn in tax receipts for any government that relies on fuel taxes as a source of revenue for maintaining the road infrastructure.
Excellent. Thanks for that. It's a full answer. So SPRUCE is a partnership of road user charging experts who all bring something different to this mythical table, if you like, or the party, whichever you prefer. What is your USP? What do you bring to the party / table?
Well, I'd say that if I have a USP, it's to bring back to Europe 12 years of light vehicle road usage charging experience in the US. And I was one of the key drivers of forging the SPRUCE team. Within SPRUCE, my primary role has been to incite colleagues in Europe who I began working with only in about 1992 to federate around the idea of a group of independent experts who work on road pricing initiatives for both private and public sector clients on an ad hoc basis.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, so you're do you see yourself as a facilitator then?
I would say facilitator, and I've been involved at the coalface of a number of projects in the U.S. And as states and member countries in Europe begin to roll out and do studies on the need for changing the way people pay to drive on roads, i.e. the user pays principle, with the eventual demise of the fuel tax revenues, I see myself as a key facilitator in the group and then being involved in outreach activities and in indirect projects as we move forward.
Okay, so don't take this next question the wrong way. So Steve, just for clarity, listeners, Steve and I first met in 1999, I think it was. Yeah, 1999. So you've been, when I say you've been around a long time, I don't mean that in a bad way, in an experienced way. So road user charging is based on fairness. You pay for the roads that you use. It's a simple sell, really. But what do you consider to be the top 3 factors to consider based on your experience globally of all the systems and projects and schemes that you've seen? And what and where have you noticed things that were very noteworthy? That's a terrible question. What have you seen that's been noteworthy that is kind of inspires you now?
Well, I would probably start off by answering that last question and then coming back to the 3 top factors.
Please
I think
do.
the main thing that I've noticed is that we see the United States in the vanguard of implementing distance-based charging schemes for the replacement of the gas tax. So that where we've seen is that we now have 4 operational programs in the US. We have more than half of all states in the US have an annual fee, which is not based on usage, for electric and plug-in electric vehicles. So I've seen the US really take the lead on that, and I'm hoping to come back and apply how we've done things in a fairly systematic way in the US to the potential moving forward of replacing the gas tax in Europe. So for me, the first and foremost key factor is one that came out yesterday, i.e. the political dimension. It is fundamental and cannot be ignored. As a recent New York City congestion project was canceled by the governor, it is important not to schedule the start of a road pricing scheme before elections are held, even on the national level. But no matter what you do or what you say, in a democracy, as we've seen in the past in the Netherlands activities, we have to accept that sometimes bad decisions are made. Bad decisions from an economics, but politically, it could be a good decision. So the next key factor for me, and probably I would have had it be first if we hadn't seen what happened yesterday, is public awareness and acceptance of the need to transition to the user pays principle of road usage, given that the current system based on fuel taxes is not sustainable. When I discuss with public authorities about their distance-based charging plan for all vehicles, I stress that a well-funded and flawless communication strategy is a critical factor. What this means for me is that upfront ample resources for outreach, webinars, workshops, etc., with constituents at a grassroots level is fundamental in order to discuss and explain the need to change the way we pay to drive on the roads. And then lastly, very, very succinctly, I believe that the perception of privacy is always a major concern, even though privacy itself is not an issue. As we have seen the transition to smartphones, people have really become less focused on the privacy issue, but the perception is still there, big brother.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So what do you see as the combined strengths of Spruce? Because I'm going to ask the same questions to all 12 people. Everyone's got different strengths and bring different things. But as an entity and as individuals, and I guess as teams of individuals within the entity, you've all got different skill sets like GNSS, data use, comms, etc. And the 12 of you have worked extensively across the world over the last few decades. How do you bring all that experience to bear and actually help governments across the world, authorities across the world, implement these schemes that you're so passionate about?
Well, first of all, we really don't know yet because we never plan to be a formal entity with a legal status. So as an entity and as individuals, we many of us have been working on various projects. But I would like to give the example of how we've been involved in some conferences. Spruce has been involved in helping organize and helping be involved in the planning of some RUC-related conferences, mostly in Europe over the last few years. It was a global tolling conference that took place 2 years ago in Dublin, or a year and a half ago. There was the global tolling conference from IBTD that took place in Athens last year. And so members of the Spruce team have been involved in the planning groups of these events. And one of the things I see going forward that Spruce as an entity or as a group could do is get more involved in helping raise awareness by getting involved in more European level activities around the need to develop a forum for public and private sector, both the government side, the operators, the vendors, and the consultants can come together and talk about the need for distance-based charging or road usage charging, the financial aspects related to that, what is going to happen when we have run out of concession contracts in some countries, and how could they be folded into a future distance-based charging? And then the whole last issue, which is really of critical importance to many of the roads directorates across Europe and elsewhere, is the notion of how are we going to manage and deal with the rise of digital technology. The data is there. And so we all have different skills, but really, I think the verdict is out as where we will be, but we're working together. We have very frequent video conferences to talk about events that various people are involved in and some of the projects. So what has happened is we've seen that the 12 of us come together and say one person has a project, I'm going to say in Colombia, or another country, or even in the US, sometimes we can call on all our other colleagues or partners within the Spruce to provide support to that client through one main entity, and that could be one of us. So it's really kind of a bit of a nebulous answer, and I don't mean to be vague, but we're still figuring it out. We've gotten some good legwork, and we are involved in many activities, and we do have a lot of discussions in the private sector and public sector about what is the future of RUC in Europe, and we hope to be involved in that.
Excellent, thank you. So if people want to get involved, want to find out more, how can they get in touch with you and with the Spruce Network in general?
Well, the one of the things that we decided not to do is that we noticed that there's been a transition from an entity or an individual, or especially freelance consultants, to not taking the time and effort to develop a bona fide website. Okay, everybody has to have a website. Well, we decided that if we have a website, then 12 of us have to agree on the content.
Yes.
I can't tell you how hard it was just for 12 of us to agree on what spruce means.
Yes.
Okay. So what we decided to do is to have a one-page description that you can find on the Spruce LinkedIn page. And we've decided to focus on LinkedIn because it really seems to be the place where everybody goes for business contacts, for outreach. All of the organizations that we have contacts with are providing a lot of input on LinkedIn, and it's a huge resource and a source of information exchange. So if you want to contact any of us, any 12 of us, just go to the LinkedIn page under Spruce, and we are there.
That's probably where people are listening to this from. So that's a great answer. Thank you, Steve. So, Steve, that is superb stuff. So if you do want to know more about Spruce Network, you know where to go. There are 11 more of these episodes to come. I'm going to be presenting all of them. So thank you for joining me, Steve. Really appreciate your time. Join us again for another episode of Are You Ready to Ruck? Thank you.